Hello and welcome back to the data cleansing lecture video series. And so in this function, in this video, we're going to talk about how to combine functions. Several of the functions that we talked about, we're going to combine them into one super function or power function or mega function, whatever you want to call it. Then what we're going to do is we're going to look at text to columns, which is a neat feature in Excel, and so we'll go over that. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the index match function combination, which lets you retrieve data to the left of the lookup value, where typically VLOOKUP, as I'll show you, VLOOKUP retrieves data to the right of the lookup value, okay, of where we want to look up. So let's take a look at this first one, using multiple functions to solve the problem. So if we look over here, this is on, let me look at my spreadsheet, I'm on combining functions example right there. So you can see what I have over here, and I have a note. We want to remove the spaces, remove the comma, and then switch the positions of the first and last name. So I got to remove those spaces in the beginning, and then I want to remove the comma, and what I want it to look like is like this. I want it to look like Dave Henderson. Okay. So what functions do I need to use? I need to use trim, mid, left, find, and I'm also going to use length to solve this problem. Now the way I set this up here is here's what we wanted to get to. This is, if we think about how we're going to do this, I want to trim everything. So which means to remove the spaces. So what I've done here is I've kind of done this in step 1, step 2, step 3, and then I put all the steps together in one big function right over here. So let's go through each step. So with step 1, I remove the spaces. So I've got some of these leading spaces, and I remove those using that trim function. So C5. Step 2, I want to get the first name. So how do I do that? Well, if you take a look at like what we're doing, you can see that I've got last name first, and then I have first name last. What separates these two is the comma, right? It's the comma separates those two. So I can come over here, and I'm going to say mid, and I'm going to take what I already did here in terms of the trim. So F5, not C5, but here F5, because here's where I trimmed it. And then I'm going to say find. So this is the start number argument for the vid function. And what I want to do is I want to find where that comma is, and then I want to add 2, because that's where I get to the D. All right? Because it's comma, and then you can see a space, then plus one more is where we get to the D. So I'm going to say find character 44, which is the comma. Where do I want to look for it? Within the text here, F5. And then I'm going to say start at position 1, and then take that result here from the find function right there and add 2 to get to D. And then how far do I go? Because remember D, that's going to be, if you think about the mid function, that's the start. So I start there, and then I go how far until the end of the text, until the end of F5, and then that gives me Dave. Okay? I can look over here, so that's my second step, is to get my first name. My last step is to get my last name. So here I use the left function, and I say left, and I do it on F5 because F5 is where I trimmed it, and I say find the comma again. Where do I want to find it? In in our F5 right over there. And then I take that result, because remember it's going to show me where the comma is right there. But if I don't say -1, what I'll get here is Henderson, comma. But I don't want that. I just want Henderson, so that's why I say -1 there. Okay? Then I can put it in one big function. And I can say equals trim. Then I can say take the mid. So remember, the trim removes that. So I'm going to work my start inside and then work out with this function. So let's look at that. I'll explain it that way. So with this one, this is where we got the first name, right? All the way through here. That was step 2. And then what I did over here is I concatenated it. The ampersand is another way to concatenate, with character 32, which remember character 32 is the space. Okay? Concatenated that with finding the last name. Okay? And so what I did is that whole thing I trimmed to remove those spaces. Okay? And so then I can put it all together in one power function, and this is what I get right there. Okay? But I wanted to go through and show you step by step by step, and then put it all together. All right, so let's look at the next thing right over here. Another useful thing to do, and I think this should probably make some intuitive sense, is to use edit replace. So lots of times, for example, you might have some zeros, some leading zeros, and there are always two leading zeros, where you could just go edit replace and remove those zeros. Or you could do, if there's some commas, you could edit replace the comma with a space. Okay. The other thing that is also useful is to edit paste special values. So for example, you have to do that. You're going to have to do this in one of your cases. Okay. So if I came over here and let's say that I wanted to take this value and put it into another text file that I then have to put into some statistical software. Okay. It's not going to like the formula. It only takes text and numbers. Okay. So what I can do is I can go copy, and then I can come up here to paste special, and I can just say values, and then what I have is it's no longer the function, it's just the value that was returned by the function. Okay. And I'm going to hit edit undo, and I still have my function. But that's really useful, especially if you want to, if you have a lot of formulas in Excel and you're doing all this manipulation, then you need to input that Excel file to save it as a comma-separated value file or a text file for input into some other statistical software package or some other software that only takes text or the numerical values but not the functions. Okay, I've had to do that before multiple times. So I've had to just edit paste special over and edit paste special values over all the formulas in order to upload it properly. Okay, so I just wanted to bring that up. Okay. The other thing that's kind of cool is using text columns in Excel. So this allows you to move text from one column into another. It can be useful for parsing data. So if we look over here, I'm going to go to my next tab, right over here, my text to columns feature. So what I have over here is I'm going to use text to columns, right, to break into two separate columns, all right? So I'll come over here, and I can go to data, and I can go to text to columns. And then it's going to ask you whether you want delimited or fixed. And so it says delimited, characters such as commas or tabs separate each field, and that's what we have. We can see there's a comma. Fixed width would be, you just have to specify how far you want to split. So if you said 5, then it's going to take the first 5 and put that in one column, and then everything else in another column. But I'm going to use delimited. Okay, so this is a little text to column wizards. And so what's my delimiter? In this case, it's not the tab key, it's not the semicolon, it's the comma. And see, then here's your preview. Henderson Dave, just like that. Okay. So then I can go next, right? And then I can just, this is what format do I want it to be in? I just want it to be in general, right up here. Okay, that's fine by me. And then I can just hit finish, and there we go. It puts it in two separate ones like that. Okay, so that's text to columns, and you can see that would be useful for parsing data. All right. You can also use those formulas that we just went over to parse data too. The last thing that I wanted to talk about was over here looking at the index match combination. So if we look over here, and I'm going to come down here to the index match tab, worksheet right over here. Okay, and so what I have over here is I have my division, and then I have my sales, and I have my cost of goods sold, and I have my gross profit. North, south, east, west, like that. Cost of goods sold, gross profit. So I have a few questions here. My boss has asked me a few questions. And the first one was, hey, what's the gross profit for West Division? Well, this one, we can use the VLOOKUP. We know how to do that. We just go VLOOKUP, B6, and then B2 to E6, and then comma 4. Okay? Now, the other thing is, what if we had which division has the highest gross profit? That's the harder question to answer. So I can't really answer that with a VLOOKUP, because what I want to do in order to answer this question, which division has the highest gross profit, I first need to figure out which is the highest gross profit. And how do I do that? I use the max function. So I say, what's the highest gross profit? Well, it's 200,000. And then what I need to do is look to the left to find the division. The problem with VLOOKUP is it takes here and looks to the right. So I need to use index match to look to the left to get the value that I want. Okay? So if I come back over here to my PowerPoint, let me just stretch this out a little bit. Here's the format. It says index, so you have to use a combination between index and match functions to get this. Index, what do you want to find? Okay? And then match that lookup value and then the location of the lookup value. Okay? So if we look over here, back to our Excel spreadsheet, and let me just move this up. Sorry for moving around a little bit. So, we can come over here and we're going to say index, move this up just a little bit, index B3 to B6, okay? So this is where I want to find the data. So I want to find it in here, okay? So that's the first part of my function. So I go equals index, and this is where I want to find it. And then I'm going to say match C10, well this is my max, okay? And then this is where my max is located. Okay, and then right over here, just say match type, and that gets into that same VLOOKUP argument. You want exact or approximate. Okay, in this case, we want it to be exact. Okay, so that's the way this works now. Could I come over here and rather than saying C10, put in the max function? Yeah, I sure could do that. Okay, but just kind of going over that one more time. The VLOOKUP helps us to find data to the right. The index match combination helps to find data to the left. Okay, so in this case, I got the max right over there, and then I said, all right, I'm going to do my index. This is where the data are located that I want to find. So I want to find the division, and then I put a comma, and then I start with my match, and then here is where I want to what I want to look up, and I want to look up C10, which is my highest gross profit. Okay. Where do I want to look it up? E3 to E6, and then I specify my match type right over there, and then I get the right answer. And I can't do that with the VLOOKUP. I have to use the index match combination. All right, so that ends this lecture video right over here, and I'm going to go ahead and say goodbye.